and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe.
And I'm Dave Scott. Very good to have you with us. Tyler in our West Bloomfield studios at Lakes FM. Me in some nondescript office without any decorating other than a gray wall and a light. For those of you watching on Zoom, we thank you. And on our television channels, I should say, we thank you for joining in. It's going to be a very busy day today in the program. First of all, what is this show? If you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome to the Megacast. It's a radio show. It's a television broadcast. It's an internet broadcast. You can call it a podcast or a live stream. Actually, you can call it all of those things. We call it the Megacast. Thank you very much to 89.3 Lakes FM at West Bloomfield, Orchard Lake, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake. Thank you very much to 88.1 WBFH The Biff in Bloomfield Hills, Bloomfield Township, heading up into Pontiac and down to Birmingham. And a huge thanks to Avondale Community Radio, 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, with a huge signal covering most of Oakland County and a ton of Macomb County from I-75 and M59, their transmitter location at Avondale High School. Thank you for watching on Channel 15 Comcast in many of our communities, thanks to Civic Center TV and Birmingham area municipal television. You can also watch on the amazing website at civiccentertv.com that is packed with all the news and information you need of the day, especially surrounding the coronavirus issue. Go to civiccentertv.com. And Tyler, I don't have a rundown sheet open yet. Who is our Facebook Live partner today?
Well, it's a big national day for filling out your U.S. Census, and we were going to have her on today with us today, but instead, because of the governor, we had to move her to a later time in the week. But we're still on the Facebook page of West Bloomfield's Township Clerk's Office.
All right, so thank you very much to the clerk. And rundown-wise, Tyler, you have it in front of you. I've not opened my rundown sheet yet. Why don't you tell us what we have this hour in the program?
Yes, today we have Curt Lawson coming up in just a couple of minutes, and then we'll talk to Fortune, the owner of one of the owners of Jab's Gym in Birmingham. And then to round out the first hour of the show, we'll talk to Damany Head, the chair of the Pontiac Regional Chamber, before the, of course, press conference with Governor Gretchen Whitmer at 11 o'clock.
All right, well, let's get right to our first story. One person was killed, 2 other people injured in a shooting early Wednesday morning in West Bloomfield. Joining us now from the West Bloomfield Police Department is Curt Lawson. Curt, good morning. Everybody okay?
Good morning, Dave. Our officers are safe. Unfortunately, we had an incident last night, began around 1:12 a.m. We received a 911 call from a resident at the 6,000 block of Chase Court. And he's stated that there's multiple gunshots in front of his house. A couple minutes later, we received a second 911 call from a homeowner that stated he had been shot multiple times. We received a third 911 call that a dark-colored Dodge Charger was fleeing the area. So our officers were there very quickly. We were able to stabilize the scene, confirm that the resident, unfortunately, had been shot several times. A second subject that we've identified as a suspect was fatally shot inside the garage area of that residence. And then about a mile away at 1:25 a.m., with the assistance of the Farmington Hills Police Department, our patrol officers were able to stop a vehicle, a black Dodge Charger, to stop at 14 Mile and Drake, and the driver got out, listened to the officer's commands, and was taken into custody. And it was determined that he, in fact, had a gunshot wound himself, and we did recover a handgun from inside the vehicle. He was later transported to a local hospital. So we've definitely had a busy night here in West Bloomfield, but I want to let the residents know that at this current time, we're looking for no other suspects. We don't believe any other suspects were involved. Everyone's accounted for, but unfortunately, we did have an individual lose their life last night.
Well, a very unfortunate incident right in our own backyard. And let's be honest, I get right to the point. All this further complicated by what's been happening the past couple of days. West Bloomfield police officers had to respond last night to a very critical situation. You can imagine the police officers' adrenaline is running high when they hear coming over their radio shots fired, and they're responding to a scene, and then they have to pursue one of those people that was involved in the incident, pull them over and arrest them, and it all went well. But can you talk through some of the specifics of that? And I don't think we would normally be talking about this to such degree, but the suspects were African American, and these are the times we're living in, and the news that we're living in right now. Can you elaborate on how that arrest went down?
Well, I did talk to the sergeant that was on the scene that made the initial traffic stop of the Dodge Charger. Like you said, he was fully aware that the driver, when he exited the vehicle, is African American. But things are happening very quickly. In his training, it took over, and he did everything he was supposed to do with the verbal commands. And the driver listened to the verbal commands, and he was safely taken into custody. But that's one of the things that we're concerned about as leaders in law enforcement is, unfortunately, with everything going on, and I think a lot of it is positive. We want to have police reform, and that's all great, and we're for that. But we don't want the officers to second guess themselves. We train them. They have a high degree of training here in West Bloomfield, and thankfully last night that training took over. The officers didn't second guess themselves. We got everybody into custody very quickly and resolved the situation. Now, this investigation is not going to be done after an hour like it is on TV. This is going to take several weeks. We've collected a lot of evidence. We've executed a lot of search warrants. We don't know what the motive of this was, and we're not going to speculate at this time.
Right, but the person that you apprehended was one of the shooters last night. You knew he was armed, and fortunately in this situation, the individual who's arrested didn't put up a fight and complied with the request from the police officers on the scene.
Correct.
That, yes, and a simple correct from Curt Lawson says, you say so much in your simple, calm answer. You do. I mean, everyone is responsible for getting this right as we go forward. So clearly, I don't want to focus on the arrest any more than necessary, but it is news today. So I appreciate you engaging in that. You don't have too many shootings in West Bloomfield to deal with, do you, Curt Lawson?
No, West Bloomfield is one of the safest communities in the state of Michigan. We've routinely, year after year, been in the top 20, sometimes in the top 10. But thanks to our residents, this police department is prepared to deal with situations like this. We have some of the most advanced technology within our investigations unit of any police department in the state, to the point we've actually had the Secret Service come to us to use some of our technology. So we'll be able to access some of the electronics that we've taken as evidence within the next week, where some departments that could take 6 months. So we're going to move forward with this investigation, and I just want to thank the residents for their support. And unfortunately, we had this incident. It's an incident that doesn't happen that often, like you said, in West Bloomfield, but we're going to be able to deal with it in a very professional manner and go about our business.
Curt Lawson is the West Bloomfield Township Police Information Officer, Deputy Police Chief. Curt, do you have any information as you begin to investigate this at this point? If these people knew each other, what kind of background you might have on them?
So that's what's going to take some time. There's a lot of different scenarios, and we don't want to speculate. We did interview the resident, the owner of the house here in West Bloomfield, and he stated he did not know these individuals. But obviously, we have to do our research and our due diligence. And at the end of the day, we'll find out what the motive was, and we'll present that to the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office.
And I don't know if you could talk about this or not yet. When there's gunfire and then gunfire happens outside of a residence, you wonder and fear whether there were stray bullets that were found around the rest of the neighborhood. Were there a lot of shots fired in this exchange? Do you have any idea of how many shots were fired and whether some of those rounds ended up elsewhere, maybe in neighboring homes, or could have put anybody else in danger?
I didn't actually go to the scene, and neither did the chief. Our job is to let our people do their work and kind of stay away and sit in our office and drink Starbucks and kind of oversee and make sure they have the tools to get their job done. So I wasn't actually at the scene, but it's my understanding, talking to the detectives, that there was multiple rounds fired. All three individuals involved in this incident were firing their weapons, so multiple rounds.
All right. And I almost hesitate to ask this, but I have to, because it wasn't too long ago that we lost an officer in West Bloomfield. And when you have a shooting scene, a live shooting scene in your department, memories and some of the challenges and the risk that police officers take every day, they have to come to mind, Curt Lawson.
Well, certainly when my phone rings in the middle of the night and I'm told that there's possibly multiple shootings within the township, the first thing is, you're kind of breathless, your heart stops because you're thinking about your officers and you want to make sure that they're okay. But, fortunately in this circumstance, all of our people are safe, they're okay. The fact that we spend so much on training really pays off in situations like this.
And what would be customary, and I know you got a lot of other things to go and you've been doing all night, so we'll let you go in a minute, but what would be customary with an officer or officers who've been involved in a situation like this? Do you take them off the streets for a little while? Do they get a chance to regroup? There's got to be some post-mortem stress that they're feeling right now.
Well, here we are, maybe 9 hours since the incident began. Most of those officers that were involved in that incident are still writing their reports. They will be allowed to go home and get some rest, and then they will return for a debrief. And we'll debrief as a group, and we'll talk about what we did right, what we could have done better, and make it a learning experience for all of us.
All right. Well, terrible situation. Job well done by the West Bloomfield Police Department. And going out here, I just want to say that, people that are talking about taking funding away from police departments and minimizing the capabilities of police departments, I think today is a really good lesson to see why we need a fully capable, well-trained police department in all of our municipalities around the country.
You're right. I mean, I fall on the side of I think there needs to be some police reform. I don't believe that as many police departments are up to the standards that we are as need to be. I think we all need to be on a very high level playing field. But defunding the police, that's not the answer.
Curt Lawson, well said. He is the West Bloomfield Township Public Information Officer, Deputy Police Chief, and a great guy who needs a nap. So we're going to let you go. Thank you for your time this morning, and I'm so glad everybody's okay. At
Thanks,
least and certainly our well wishes to anyone who perished in the incident. Curt, thank you very much. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. This is the Megacast. We have a ton of other things to get to today, and we will do so in a moment. I'm Dave Scott, Tyler Keefe back in our studios, and we will be back in a moment right here on the Megacast.
Coronavirus has put us to the test. Now it's time to put it to the test. We've greatly expanded testing in Michigan. So people who think they may have COVID-19 with symptoms like fever, cough, and shortness of breath can get tested. And those without symptoms who work in public can now get tested, as they could carry the virus. Start by calling your healthcare provider or contacting a testing site near you. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Technology like smartphones are wonderful devices to reduce social isolation in older adults. You can call grandchildren, phone friends, participate in fitness classes, and play games. But you need to stay mindful of scams. Scams related to the COVID-19 virus are rising. These include attempts to obtain personal information from seniors, including pitching unreliable products, advice, tests, and cures. You need to stay vigilant and be cautious. If you feel that you have been taken advantage of, it's okay for you to reach out to somebody you know and seek out advice, or even contact your medical provider. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe.
And I'm Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us on 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH The Biff, 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, Birmingham Area Municipal Television, and Civic Center TV. We are live today on civiccentertv.com and the internet, and also live in the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield Clerk's Office. We thank Clerk Debbie Binder for making that available to us. Tyler, and maybe if you're doing a radio show in Chicago, what we just talked about is not necessarily news, but in suburban Detroit, we don't have too many, open gun exchanges going on in front of a suburban house too often.
No, you don't. And it's been a few years, at least to my knowledge. Definitely, I believe I was still in college at the time the last shooting in West Bloomfield, or a similar situation in West Bloomfield that I can remember being in the news like this. It's not something we see commonly, but it's like you said with Curt Lawson, like he said about his team. When these do occur, you get a great response from the local law enforcement.
All right, so job well done by the West Bloomfield Police Department, and best wishes for them as they try to figure all this out, and the detectives there doing their job. And, I'll just say it. They can't say it, Tyler, but I'll just say it on behalf of all of us in our region, in the state of Michigan, and in the nation. Big sigh of relief that the police officers handle the thing so well. And, and to the individual who was arrested, who we may find out some very bad things about, it was good that it was handled well from his side as well. I mean, we could be talking about a national incident in West Bloomfield this morning, in spite of the severity of the criminal acts.
We definitely could have. This could have been a lot bigger of an issue if it hadn't been handled properly. And I think that does go back to what Curt Lawson was saying about the type of training that the West Bloomfield Police Department goes through on a yearly basis to work through these kinds of situations properly and effectively and in a way that is community-driven, to de-escalate the situation, to bring the person that is the alleged offender into custody as safely as possible, both for them and for anybody else in the general area.
All right, Tyler, Keefe, Dave, Scott, we have a very busy program today and not a lot of time to get to everything, so I'm going to move along. On our agenda today, Tyler, of course, we're going to continue to dissect this shooting incident and the way it was handled in West Bloomfield yesterday. Actually, today, early this morning, around 1 o'clock in the morning or so. Kudos. I salute the people at MLive. Finally, another media source came out with an exhaustive report, a huge report. Exhaustive is not the right word. You can help me with my vocabulary this morning, Tyler. Oh, it's a big coffee cup morning for me, but a very significant and very well-prepared report on the unemployment situation in the state of Michigan. If we have time, we're going to review that. They cited the same things we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks with people in the state of Michigan not getting their unemployment checks, and the burden. This whole mess with unemployment and the massive number of claims and unemployment fraud has been shifted to those unemployed from the state of Michigan to some degree. So we'll continue to talk about that. And if we get time, we'll go through that MLive story. It is linked on our website, and I strongly encourage you to get out there and take a look at it. There is a town hall on education happening right in our own backyard at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Tyler, can you fill us in?
It's 4 o'clock today. We will be holding that town hall live on Civic Center TV and here on Lakes FM. It's hosted by Representative Brenda Carter, and it'll include panelists from school districts throughout the local area and from our representatives in both the state and federal government. U.S. Representatives Haley Stevens and Brenda Lawrence will both be panelists, along with Michigan Senator Rosemary Baer, who we've had on the show several times, and then also from our local school districts. Our good friends over at the West Bloomfield and Avondale school districts, their superintendents Dr. Gerald Hill and Dr. James Schwarz, respectively, will be panelists, along with Pontiac Superintendent Kelly Williams. And then at 4:30, at the bottom part of that of that town hall, they will be taking audience questions and doing a Q&A session with the panelists as well to talk about these education issues in our state, particularly the funding crisis that is impending as the schools wait what budget will be what budgetary funds will be sent their way.
All right, so we're gonna broadcast all of this on the stations that are available with us this afternoon. So certainly on Civic Center TV and Lakes FM. And then Tyler, I know that we're going to be involved in that and recording it, and we'll do our very best to get that report, even an edited version, on the air. We'll definitely be at civiccentertv.com if you can't catch it live today. And then just based on the timing and how the whole thing goes down, we may in fact just rebroadcast that at some point on the Megacast. But 4 o'clock today, you'll be able to watch that anywhere in our viewing area at civiccentertv.com, and we will have it live in our West Bloomfield outlets, radio and TV, at about 4 o'clock. Right, Tyler?
Yes, it is at 4 o'clock today, live Civic Center TV and on Lakes FM.
All right. So the governor of the state of Michigan is looking pretty smart today, Tyler Keefe. We're going to hear from her at 11 o'clock. She's got a news conference. And, with all the abuse and all the criticism she has taken, I wouldn't blame her if she gloated a little bit today. I mean, I hope she doesn't. I think it'd be a little inappropriate. But I would not blame her if she took an opportunity, and I'm sure she will, not in the gloating way, but in a more appropriate way, to recognize that some states, in fact, up to 20 states around the nation, are seeing new peaks in their coronavirus breakout. Michigan is not one of them. In fact, Michigan is, if you look at the numbers, without getting into the nitty-gritty right now, because you just don't have time, but Michigan may be in better shape than any state in the country.
She does look really smart at this point because she was following the science throughout the entire crisis, and she had made a point to say, we're going to follow the numbers, we're going to follow the medical advice first and foremost before anything else, including economic, although that's going to be a major factor. And Michigan had some of the most restrictive regulations put in place for COVID-19 safety as far as stay-at-home orders and what sectors of business were allowed and not allowed to operate, or how they were allowed to operate. And those extra precautions, that abundance of caution as we have on our COVID vocabulary, played a key role in this. And it's one of those reasons you could argue why we are in the position we're in right now.
No, Michigan doing much better than any state in the country. We have not only flattened the curve, I think we've gone somewhat beyond that. That being said, people who are critics of the governor and the way this whole thing has gone down, I think they can still make a valid point that should we have opened this and not open that? Should we be able to, go ride in a powerboat and not a sailboat? But, the whole thing is complicated. And let's see what the governor has to say. We're going to hear from her today at 11 o'clock. And I don't want to be a pundit and characterize where we're at. I'm just here to report that. So you can get that stuff, but plenty of other media outlets. But 11 o'clock, we'll hear from the governor with the news that's broken over the past 24 hours. I expect this is going to be a very interesting press conference. Meanwhile, put on top of that, Tyler, that we're still not entirely open here in Michigan. Gyms and movie theaters and a lot of other businesses are still not open. And some of them are pushing back a little bit. We're hearing from Paul Glantz's theater, Imagine Theater Royal Oak, that they're going to open for a special event on Friday. In the governor's office last time I checked in with them said they can't do that under the current governor's orders.
Now, under the current orders as they stand now, and this may change or may not change after 11 o'clock today, they're not allowed to open. Gyms aren't allowed to open. Theaters are still not allowed to open, but they're much like the Owasso Barbers, a little bit of defiance there. Now, in the case of the Imagine Theater, I think it seems to me like that's a one-off, one-day thing. That's also a great example, possibly in a secondary fashion, a great example of how you can operate a theater safely, but I don't believe it's a permanent opening. I think it's just a one-day celebration.
All right. So, and going back to you opened this and you didn't open that, there's always going to be that kind of thing. But, some people are saying, well, you've opened up summer camps now, but we can't open up gyms. Now, maybe there's a distinction between a summer camp where a lot, but not all the activities are happening outside, and a gym where most of the things are happening inside. Very difficult, though, Tyler, for you and I to have any real perspective on this. Let's go to somebody right now who definitely has perspective. He is the owner of Jab's Gym in Birmingham. Let's say hello to Willie Fortune, who joins us now here on the Megacast. Willie, welcome to the program.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're doing fantastic. It's great to have you here via Zoom. Thank you for very, very much for joining us today.
No problem.
So for people that don't know anything about Jabs, tell us about Jab's Gym.
Well, Jab's Gym is a state-of-the-art training facility based around boxing fitness as well as just everyday strength fitness and creating, life habits.
So, Willie, we're going to hear from the governor today at 11 o'clock, and most of these big press conferences she's been holding, they've resulted in something opening up. Hopefully today, for you and the other gyms around the state of Michigan, they're going to open up gyms, but it's got to be rough being closed for all these months.
It's definitely been a challenge. We're trying to do as much as we can as far as keeping people active, as well as maintaining some type of revenue to keep the business, in good standing.
So what have you been doing?
Well, for myself, I actually designed a system for my bags to be outside. So we're doing a social distance boxing class specialized around that. It's been able to at least keep us afloat and keep a lot of people active. A lot of people are very grateful for everything that we've been doing during this time. And, it's definitely just taking off and getting more and more popular at the moment, because those were the guidelines that we could actually train outside and work out outside. And then the forms came where they were saying COVID is not alive outside, when they said it doesn't stay on surfaces anymore. It's so confusing because things go back and forth. So we just wanted to stay the safest way we could with being outside.
Well, I appreciate it. Good job on the pivot, Willie. Willie Fortune from Jabs Gym in Birmingham. We appreciate you joining us today. Looking cool there, Willie. You're in front of your bag there in your gym. Tell us about your place and what kind of facilities you have inside.
So inside we have the room that I'm in right now is our classroom, which is usually it's filled with bags, a nice amount of bags for a large amount of people. Now we've kind of changed the infrastructure to it, where it's going to be like, anywhere between 10 to 12 people, social distance wise. We'll just be running more classes throughout the day, making sure that people are registering ahead of time. We won't be doing any walk-ins and things like that. We have to be able to keep and maintain order and structure so we can know what's coming in and what's going out.
I guess my notes here say that people call you Fortune. Should I just be calling you Fortune? Is that what they call you?
Yeah, I go by Fortune majority. It's one of those George Foreman stories. Like all of the kids are named George, so like it's a big name. So ever since I was a little kid, everyone just references me as Fortune.
Fortune, I appreciate that. You think of boxing and you think of the conditioning that goes into it. We've all seen the video, the great boxers of all time, running 20 miles a day and doing all the amazing things they have to do to get themselves in shape. And, Rocky Balboa going up the steps in Philadelphia. So, with the Rocky theme playing in the background, Is boxing and conditioning for boxing, even for people that don't want to make it a career or even engage in the sport, is it a really good workout for, just your average Joe who wants to mix it up a little bit at your gym?
Absolutely. It's the workout is for everyone. Just like you said, the thing about it is boxing is the one workout that you don't have to go and buy 1,000 different pieces of equipment. It predominantly uses your body and your mind. So that's what boxing is about. Boxing will push you above and beyond limits and expectations, and it builds core values. So boxing also tackles stress. It tackles, as you see, they do programs for autism, Parkinson's, all of these things, because boxing also stimulates the brain. People just think of boxing on a physical standpoint, but it's mental and physical.
Well, I appreciate that. Sounds like a lot of fun, too. And I assume you have people of all ages and all genders. I want to come over there in Birmingham, see some 70-year-old lady pounding the bag. So you get all kinds of people, right?
Yes, we have all sorts of people. My oldest member here she was almost 90.
All right, man. That's really cool.
She goes harder than most people.
I get it. My producers always give me a bunch of notes. I don't always know what they mean. What they said to ask you, what is BOYO or Boyo? What's that mean? Boyo.
So,
okay.
Boyo is a workout that I designed, which is basically, I call it boxing yoga, because in yoga they usually build up in flows. In Boyo, we build up in combinations and things things like that, because we want to work the mind at the same time. A lot of people just like kind of going into routines where they don't have to think, but we actually like to think because there's a thing called mind muscle confusion. And you have to activate these things to get the highest transformation to your body when you're working out.
So you're working out outside your gym right now. We'll keep an eye on the press conference at 11 o'clock. I tell you what, our producers will call you if you don't already know. If the governor opens up gyms, that'd be good news. I mean, have you ever contemplated what like Paul Gantz is doing down at Imagine Theater and that barber up in Owasso? It's like, man, I guess I could understand. You get so frustrated being closed. You ever just said, heck with it, I'm going to open up anyway?
I mean, it has crossed my mind a few times, but my biggest worry is, doing something the wrong way. So it's just like a boxing match. In a boxing match, sometimes it can cost you to try to move too fast. So I'd rather be strategic and move things out like that.
All right. Well, listen, I really want to meet you. So when all of this gets a little bit more under control, maybe we can come by and maybe we'll do a half an hour or an hour live on our show from Jab's Gym, if that would be cool with you.
I would love to do it. Jab's in Birmingham would love to do that.
All right. Where are you located? People want to stop by, and how do people find you on the internet?
So we're located at 2285 Cole Street in Birmingham, Michigan. Or they can go to Instagram at JabsGym_Beham, or they can find us on Facebook as well at Jabs Gym Birmingham, or the website is birmingham.jabsgym.com, and you can kind of see like some of the services from, like I said, the classroom to our actual training side where we have the full-size ring, and then I have something new rolling out that I could probably show you exclusively before things go.
All right. Well, Fortune, thank you very much for joining us on the show. We look forward to meeting you. Good job. Listen, I just want to remind people, it isn't easy running a business in normal times, and trying to keep your place running and pivot the way you have, taking things outside, making it work, staying within the system and the orders of the governor. Man, I salute you. It isn't easy. We'll get through this, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side and coming by real soon when we get you open.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said before, you know what? The one thing I can say is, that's boxing. Boxing teaches you how to make adjustments. So you got to be able to make adjustments at any given time.
All right. I am totally out of shape, my friend. And, I never thought about boxing, but I'll give it a try for a couple of minutes when we come by. All right.
I warn you, it's very addictive. Once you come in, it's so much fun. Plus the workout is like the bonus part.
All right, dude, if I pass out, you'll call 911, won't you?
You won't even have to worry about that. I'm certified. I'll bring you back to life and then you'll finish.
All right. Thank you very much, Fortune. Good talking to you.
All right, man. Thank you for having us.
All right, very good. Jab's Gym. Hey, thank you, man. Jab's Gym in Birmingham. And Tyler, Fortune, and a lot of other folks in the gym business and other businesses will be watching today at 11 o'clock as we hear from the governor live right here in the Megacast and see what she's got to say about possibility of opening gyms and a lot of other facilities here in Michigan that have not yet had the benefit of getting open. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. This is the Megacast. We are in Birmingham area Municipal Television, Civic Center TV, civiccentertv.com, and also on 3 great radio stations, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 The Biff, and 89.5 Avondale Community Radio. We'll be right back.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards. Back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. we're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft.
And I'm Dave Scott. Tyler in West Bloomfield. I'm in Troy today, and you are wherever you are, all around Oakland County. We thank you for tuning into the Megacast. Not a radio broadcast or TV broadcast or a podcast or a stream exclusively. It is all of the above. And if you missed any of the Megacast, we invite you to go to civiccentertv.com, where you can see all the interviews we've done over the past 65 plus days that we have been on the air since the outbreak of COVID-19. We started the show to make sure you had all the helpful information you need to survive this deadly outbreak, and it just blossomed from there. Tyler, you got some boxing gloves?
I do not. No, I don't have any boxing gloves.
Yeah, I bet they got some for us down at the gym. What do you think?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they would.
You want to go down there with me, check it all out, head over to Birmingham, get a little workout after this is all over?
That'd be fun. It'd be interesting. Something different. Sure.
Okay. All right. Sure. We will see at 11 o'clock today when the governor speaks live on the show if gyms are going to open, what's going on. And she certainly will be talking about the national news that has been breaking out in the past 24 hours, that we are seeing COVID-19 spikes in a lot of states. And I think the number was somewhere around 20. And I've not read through all the reports this morning. I've been busy working on other stuff, but Michigan, Tyler, and we'll pull the actual story here, but Michigan is apparently the best state in the country. We are doing better than any other state in the country. Governor, I'm sure, will be talking about that today at 11 o'clock.
I'm sure that will be a big point of conversation for the governor, and also for the Chief Executive of the Michigan Department of Medical Executive of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Dr. Jonay Caldoum, and they speak today about how Michigan's strategies have led to this point, on top of just the fact that Michigan is one of the top states, or the top state in terms of COVID-19 safety at this point in time.
Right, and a big part of it is are the people of Michigan too. This has been tough, but compliance, washing our hands, wearing the mask, doing the things that we need to do, washing our surfaces, making it all happen. You have been doing that every day. The people of Oakland County, you have been making it happen. So let's give ourselves a little bit of credit today. Likely we'll hear about some other future openings and future plans, any challenges today. Governor, 11 o'clock here on the Megacast, and we'll take the entire news conference. My guess it'll take up most of the 11 o'clock hour. Meanwhile, we have been working very hard on this show to recognize the challenges that the unemployed have here in the state of Michigan. And Tyler, the number we have been told is 2 million unemployed here in the state. And it's been very difficult for a lot of people, many of them that we've talked to in the show, to get their unemployment checks, in spite of every action that you could imagine to try to communicate with the Unemployment Insurance Agency here in the state of Michigan if your money didn't start showing up in the mail. In spite of all that, it's been impossible for many people. The numbers are huge. And then this is all compounded as we have a problem with unemployment fraud in Michigan. And then the state, when the fraud started kicking in, turned off unemployment for a lot of people as they tried to work through that. And so on top of the people that haven't been able to get their unemployment, there's a whole other group of people who were getting their unemployment who are not now because of the whole fraud system. And it has not fraud system, but the result of the fraud investigation having nothing to do with the actions of these individuals who are now not getting their check. So we've not seen this widely reported. However, the rest of the media is catching up, Tyler. Rest of the media has started to catch up. Big story. We linked today to our Civic Center TV website from M Live, the statewide online newspaper. Headline reads, Michigan cut off unemployment for thousands of eligible restaurants, and it's not the first time. Because we're a bit passionate about this, can we go through this, Tyler? We got a minute or two to rip through this?
Yeah, we have a few minutes.
All right. So this is a story put together by Taylor Des Ormeneau. I believe, I'm sure I mispronounced that, but written by Taylor at M Live. And it talks about an individual who lost their unemployment and then in going through the fight is helping others. Great story. When Trey Holobeck started fighting Michigan unemployment system, he was mainly doing it for his own family. Now, the quiet, laid-back, apolitical maintenance worker at Midwest Water Treatment in Carroll, Michigan, is fighting the system for Marlene, an elderly woman he never met. Holobeck has never been unemployed before the coronavirus pandemic. He started getting unemployment pay after being laid off until he was one of the 340,000 Michiganders who had their accounts suspended by the state earlier this month. So he is one that was getting his unemployment, Tyler, and then it was turned off. While Holobeck entered the pandemic with an innocent confidence in Michigan's unemployment system, he's since had firsthand experience of the unemployment insurance agency's flaws. Not only did the computer system stop payments for thousands of eligible residents, but recently beefed up staffing levels, and they still can't handle the volume of people calling. And we know that from Lauren, who's been on the show, and she's been trying to get results Ixve, Nixve, 0A. That's probably not the correct pig Latin for that, Tyler, but I know our audience will forgive me. The extent of the current issues at the UIA, that's the Unemployment Insurance Agency here in Michigan, may be unprecedented, but problems themselves are nothing new, experts say. For Holobeck, he sent in documents verifying his identity, and, it just isn't getting anywhere. He says it was fruitless to jump ahead. This is what he said in the M Live article. I have yet to ever speak to an actual person. He's getting frustrated, and he is called and called and called, and he is not getting anywhere. And Tyler, as you go in and read the story, he's actually called them thousands of times. And in the phone system jams that are happening, something weird was happening at the state, as I paraphrased in the article. And people that are calling are getting linked up to other people that are calling. The lines are getting so jammed up at the UIA that callers are getting linked to other callers, not getting an answer, but getting linked to other callers. So he met this lady, Marlene, and going on and reading in the story, he says, she broke my heart. It took me 5 minutes to explain to her that he wasn't affiliated with the state of Michigan. Their lines just got crossed. He said she started crying and said, son, what am I going to do? And he said, ma'am, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't have a solution either. So after hearing this woman's story, he vowed to not keep quiet anymore. Holobeck has since met with legislators in Lansing, sharing his story, and Marlene's, the lady he met, about the unemployment system's faulty fraud detection system and how it's crippling Michiganders. And I could go on and read, Tyler, but I just want you to go in and take a look at this story. And it's very frustrating. Reading down later in the story, here's a quote from Director Steve Gray of the UIA, who Jeff can, I think, attest to. We've been calling every day ourselves to try to get on the show. And, you can understand why he's not excited about coming on this show. It's extremely upsetting that the actions of the fraudsters had delayed payments meant for our working families, says Steve Gray in a news release. While we continue to work with our state and federal partners to stop this unlawful activity, our focus remains on doing everything we can to quickly validate authentic claims and get our workers the emergency financial assistance they need. Well, why did they even cut them off in the first place? The state has shifted the burden of this fraud away from itself and onto hundreds of thousands of Michiganders who weren't involved in it in any way. And these guys should be out in front of the media talking every day, and they're hiding. They're hiding. We should see them on TV. We should hear them talking about it. So, Tyler, I hope we don't have to go up there and, broadcast live from the front steps of the UIA, but it might come to that. So read the story. as I suspected earlier, Tyler, there must be tens of thousands of people impacted by this in our listening area.
I would imagine so. I mean, there's 2.2 million people that are unemployed. There initially were 340,000 people whose cases were frozen because of fraud issues, and that eventually, a few days later, became 400,000. They had 600 workers from the UIA working on these cases. They added another 200. It's 800 people. It's not nearly enough to solve all this, and it's still completely and totally ineffective in solving this problem altogether.
All right. So listen, if you have not received your unemployment, or if you were like the subject of this article and were receiving your unemployment, it was cut off because of the fraud issues, call your state lawmaker. Call your state lawmakers, your senator, your state representative. Let them know what's going on. Recognize it may be difficult for them to even get a response from the Unemployment Insurance Agency, but start there. Go ahead and continue to work the problem. And you know what? I would invite you to send me an email as well, so we at least know who you are. And send an email to Dave at civiccentertv.com. It's Dave at civiccentertv.com. If you're in this jam, we want to be in there with you, and then we're going to figure out something. We're continuing to work to book the UIA on the show. We're attempting to get a hold of the governor's office on this issue. Maybe, Tyler, something remarkable will happen, and the governor will speak about it today. I was tempted to go to the press conference, but my schedule didn't allow it. But I think what we might need to do is go to the next governor's press conference and just ask the governor in an open press conference what's going on with this. That might be one way to raise the awareness of this issue. We're on it. We're doing the best we can.
Yeah, it's a continuing issue. I'm 100% sure that somebody in the press today is going to bring that up to the governor during the Q&A session. It's where we get the bulk of the strong information from these press conferences with the governor, and I would fully imagine that we're going to see somebody in the press bring up unemployment. There's no way it can be avoided being talked about. It's a glaring issue. It's a glaring issue, just like the pandemic in the state of Michigan.
It is.
Just like the flooding in Midland. Just like the police brutality issues in Michigan. Those issues are all the major issues of our time in the state of Michigan right now, and they're going to have to be addressed by the governor.
All right. Well, we hope that is indeed the case. So busy day here. Just to recap what's going on here in our world in Oakland County. First of all, shooting in West Bloomfield last night. One man killed, others injured. Individuals have been arrested. The arrests were as you would hope any arrest would be, especially involving an African American. And I don't know. I didn't ask Curt Lawson whether the police officers were white, but it doesn't matter right now because the arrest was, as you would hope, peaceful, and the subject, was easily taken into custody. Tragedy last night, but at least good news in the way it was handled by the West Bloomfield Police Department. So we salute them for their effective training and the way that all went down yesterday. In addition, the governor here at 11 o'clock today, we're going to hear her entire press conference, Q&A for the media, and we will follow up after that with any time that we might have available. Town Hall on Education going on later on today. It happens at 4 o'clock. It's happening via Zoom. And Tyler, we're going to broadcast the town hall, but do we know if people want to, and sorry to ask you this without any warning, but do we know if people want to engage in the town hall directly and be in on the Zoom meeting, how they can do that?
I believe it is available through Representative Brenda Carter's office. You can contact them and get the Zoom link. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it posted publicly just yet, so I'm not entirely sure on that.
Hey, Larry Nyland, our Zoom producer, why don't you call John in Representative Carter's office and see if there's a link that we can share with people, put it on our website, and he's giving me the big thumbs up. See if we can get that. We'll try and get that, Tyler, and
okay.
Larry, if you can get that to Jeff and get that on the website tonight or today while we're still on the air, we'll let folks know. That happens at 4 o'clock. Now, if you can't get in on the Zoom itself, you can watch the entire meeting live on Civic Center TV, listen to it on Lakes FM, and if you're not in one of our communities where we are live at 4 o'clock, then just go to civiccentertv.com and you can watch the whole thing. And we will have highlights. In fact, the entire thing recorded and on our website, hopefully before you go home tonight, and maybe even line it up for broadcast in its entirety here on the show at some point in the future. So that is, again, 4 o'clock today. We're working on getting you the link if you want to engage in the town hall on education that will have a number of our superintendents and lawmakers in an update on a lot of the issues we've been talking about here on the show. So those are the big stories today. We're going to take a break. In a minute, we're going to check in with the chair of the Pontiac Regional Chamber and see how business is going in Pontiac amid the COVID-19 crisis. This is the Megacast all across Oakland County. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back in a moment.
Coronavirus has put us to the test. Now it's time to put it to the test. We've greatly expanded testing in Michigan. So people who think they may have COVID-19 with symptoms like fever, cough, and shortness of breath can get tested. And those without symptoms who work in public can now get tested, as they could carry the virus. Start by calling your healthcare provider or contacting a testing site near you. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Caldoon. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Hi, my name is Curt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
And I'm Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us all across Oakland County on great radio stations like Lakes FM in West Bloomfield, The Biff in Bloomfield Hills, and 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, WAHS in Auburn Hills and the surrounding area. Good to have you with us. Governor will be speaking today at 11 o'clock. Tyler, based on all the media reports I'm seeing, I'm expecting that this is going to be a biggie. We're going to get to her at 11 o'clock. We'll hear from her. And certainly, I think she'll be talking about coronavirus numbers here in the state of Michigan, maybe opening up some other businesses. And we are standing by. So I assume, Tyler, you're able to get all that stuff done and prepared as we are continuing on with the show here.
Yes, we'll be able to get that all prepared. We'll just have to take a short break right before the top of the hour so that I can get that pulled up and have that live for us.
Yeah, we just coordinate all this live in the air. Joining us right now is the chair of the Pontiac Regional Chamber, Damany Head, joins us. Damany, thank you very much for joining us on the Megacast today.
Dave, thanks for having me.
Hey, listen, man, I only got a couple of minutes because the governor is going to be holding a press conference. We want to hear what she has to say. Man, I tell you what. Pontiac has added a new bridge based on what I'm seeing in your background there.
Absolutely. We're trying to become the new Silicon Valley. So really great to, put this bridge over the Clinton River.
You're looking good in Zoom today. Thank you very much for joining us. How's Pontiac doing? We only got a couple of minutes, but we've talked to the directors of our chambers in almost all of our communities, and we know businesses have really been struggling. How's Pontiac holding up?
Well, I think Pontiac is well positioned, just like Detroit. It's my belief. I don't know if it's everyone's belief, but we took a severe haircut during emergency financial management, which definitely changed the complexion of the size of the city, but also gave us an opportunity to save and put money away in the bank because we reduced the headcount for the city. That has also allowed the city to kind of re-engage its citizens and its businesses in a way that, we've seen the likes of Amazon come in, Shore Mortgage, Williamson International, an expansion in the General Motors campus. So you've seen some of the larger players in the community expand what they're doing. Also, you've had great partnerships with the county and the county treasurer, Andy Meisner, working to bring in local banks or banks that the county banks with. Flagstar Bank to improve their CRA rating. Also partnerships with Seed Lending and Belinda Dubois to further entrepreneurship. So there's been a lot of great projects. Money's flowing into entrepreneurs. Also, money's flowing into larger businesses within the community, and I think that's a bonus. And I think kind of the haircut that we took, during the last economic downturn, has positioned Pontiac well. To make a strong comeback post-COVID.
Well, that's all great news. I don't think that, and we can spend more time another day. I don't think people realize what's going on in Pontiac right now. People look at Pontiac as a community that let's be honest, is really devastated by the changing dynamics of the automotive industry. Similar to what Flint has gone through, and it's been tough for communities like Pontiac and Flint to rebound from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's been a progressive, coming back over the last 50 years. Sometimes things don't turn around as fast as we'd like. Definitely, you've seen over the last 2 years a higher level of engagement from the foundations across Southeast Michigan. You've also seen a higher level of engagement of addressing educational assets within the community and revamping. I mean, as an example, Pontiac School District, if you go out there, they increased their bond rating so much that they were investable bonds now. So I think there's some really great points that have happened over the last 5 to 6 years that, set the groundwork and the infrastructure for a strong recovery.
We're going to see Pontiac evolve as a place to go. People like right now going to downtowns to gather and restaurants and have more activity. Do you see that kind of activity coming back to a greater degree in downtown Pontiac?
Yeah, I mean, you have some really great assets. I mean, we've long had probably the most significant asset in Oakland County, which is Erebus, it's entertainment. So the haunted house has been one of the largest haunted houses in the world. Those two brothers have been working together for at least the last 25 years in the city of Pontiac. And you got Blair McGowan from Crowfoot, who brings in great rock concerts and great bands. So the assets are here. It's really, aligning all the leadership to take those assets and build out a brand that people want to use.
Well, anything we can do to help out with that, let's have a longer conversation on another day. But anything we can do to help out with that, let people know across the county. I mean, it's got to be frustrating. We have certainly, if not certainly one of the most prosperous counties in the state of Michigan, and Pontiac is part of that. And Pontiac has not been able to share in that prosperity that some of the communities right around it have.
Yeah, I think, the county has a strong brand, and, we have a lot of great cities that have strong brands, Royal Oak, Rochester Hills, Holly, right, Southfield. You have a really strong brands. And then, I think one of the things we have to do is really focus on the market share that we want to capture. And I know we can partner with Oakland County and the city to make sure we do that. And during this next economic turnaround.
Damany Head, chair of the Pontiac Regional Chamber. We got to skedaddle. The governor is knocking on our door. Thank you very much. Let's do this again. We'll get you rescheduled in the show. We have a few more minutes, and we'll continue to talk about some of the great things going on in Pontiac and the challenges and what we could do to help out with it.
Oh, David, thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it, and look forward to hearing what the governor has to say.
Very good. Tyler, I'm going to send it back to you. We're going to take a break, and Governor Whitmer is going to be here. Yes.
Well, Dave, actually, we're not going to be able to take a break. We need to go straight to Governor Whitmer.
Oh.
She has already began. Larry, if I could have you mute Dave in our Zoom call here, and we will get to the governor immediately. Here, I will pull up her press conference as it is already in process and live. I'm just got to reload this page real quickly. We'll go to the governor in just a moment. She has begun her press conference. We're going to have that for you in its entirety live right now. You can hear her in the background, and I will go to Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
From the spread of COVID-19 and have significantly lowered the number of cases and deaths that would have occurred had the state done nothing. It's really pretty remarkable when you see all of the data. The report shows that as we announced our order and other measures to combat the spread of COVID-19, the rate of infection fell. So I think it's also important to note that orders are important, but it's what the people do that makes the difference. And the people here in Michigan have taken this seriously. The data shows that before the public health measures were in place, the average Michigander spread the virus to 3 other people. As measures were implemented and adherence grew, Michigan's infection rate decreased to 2.5 people, and then 1.25 people, and then 0.8. Throughout April, a person with COVID-19 infected an average of less than 1 person, which allowed our curve to fall and saved a lot of lives. Now, this graph shows that the daily new cases at their peak would have been about 2.7 times higher than what we actually had here in Michigan. Without intervention, Michigan might have experienced 28,000 more positive cases before June 1st. The stay home, stay safe order undeniably saved lives. The data shows that very few states dropped their infection rate as low as Michigan. And this is just, if you can go back one, this is just a comparison with our peer states here in the Midwest. In the next slide, you can see how Michigan stacks up to other states that opened up quickly and didn't take the aggressive actions we took. And this map shows that only Michigan and New York are currently on track to contain COVID-19. Now, this is good news. But like you've heard me say many times in the past, and you will hear me say it many times in the future, it is still important to note that this is a novel virus and there is no cure or vaccine for it yet. So we have to continue to stay vigilant, and we've got to be flexible in order to lower the chance of a second wave and mitigate how serious that second wave is. Now, we have seen what's happened when people don't take this seriously. We see exponential growth happening again. We have seen people come from out of state to Michigan and bring COVID-19 with them. We've had 2 situations where people came from out of state, one in the Traverse City area over Memorial Day, and another in Midland after the flooding event. We saw someone come in from out of state to help, and they brought COVID-19 with them. So what we want to avoid desperately is to Michigan to emulate what is happening in other states, where people have dropped their guard, where people have re-engaged in an unsafe manner, and where they see positive cases ramping back up. We are seeing spikes across the country in Texas and Arizona and more, the Carolinas. But because the vast majority of Michiganders are doing the right thing by staying home and staying safe and staying informed, we're not yet seeing another spike here, and that is good for everyone and for our economy. We owe it to the heroes on the front lines to keep doing our part and taking this seriously. Masks should not be political. They are designed to save our lives. Please wear your mask when you're in public and continue to practice social distancing. Wearing a mask dramatically lowers the possibility of transmission. This was something that I think is helpful in depicting what it means to wear a mask. When you wear a mask, you're protecting others. And you can see 2 people wearing a mask cuts the possibility of transmission to 1.5%, whereas 1 person who's carrying COVID-19 and is asymptomatic has a 70% chance of infecting someone else who is even wearing a mask. So mask wearing can't be partisan, it can't be political. It is a practical way to make sure that we continue to lead this nation. A new study has shown that 80% of Americans, if 80% of Americans wear masks, COVID-19 infections would plummet. So let's stay smart and stay vigilant and stay in the lead. Here's an example of what not to do. Don't go out and cram into a place of accommodation that was previously closed. And if you are going out, use the best practices to keep yourself and others safe. Now, I'll continue to work with the Michigan Economic Recovery Council to make sure that we stay disciplined and show the world what Michigan is capable of. One of the #1 questions that I have gotten since we had to take our kids out of school is whether or not they will return to school this fall. And I completely understand, as the mom of a daughter who is supposed to be starting her senior year, or who will be starting her senior year this fall, and another who will be starting her freshman year at the University of Michigan. I know how important it is for students and their families and educators to make sure that we get this right. With the entire state of Michigan in phase 4 of the My Safe Start plan, we are optimistic that schools will be able to conduct in-person instruction while also complying with strict safety measures. On June 3rd, I announced the appointments to the Return to Learn Advisory Council, a group of 25 experts that includes educators, parents, and students. This council, which is chaired by Tanya Allen, was created to identify the critical issues that must be addressed, to provide valuable input to inform the process of returning to school, and to ensure a smooth and safe transition back to school. The group is currently working on a return to school plan that will closely align with the My Safe Start plan. As always, public health data will inform our decisions about opening and closing school buildings to students. Minimally, we'll be using the 8 MERC regions when deciding which phase we are in. However, we are working closely with local public health officials and epidemiologists to determine if the data will be reliable enough to allow us to make a more granular approach and with schools and be able to make determinations on the county level. For example, there could be a situation in Region 8 if there's evidence of a spike in cases or significant community spread in Chippewa County. Perhaps Chippewa County could shift down and not the whole region, and that way Houghton schools could continue. We will see, but that is one example of how this might work. Schools may be able to resume face-to-face instruction in phase 4 if they implement strict health and safety protocols. Our hope is to release an executive order and a robust document that we're calling Michigan's Return to School Roadmap on June 30th. That will provide details on what will be required and what will be recommended for our schools. Districts, students, staff, and families must be nimble, and we've got to be prepared to move backwards if there is evidence of community spread of the virus. While we hope soon to be in phase 5 and stay there until post-pandemic, we've got to be prepared for spikes that might occur over the next school year. Public health conditions change daily, and we're going to need to be prepared to move quickly between scenarios. So the roadmap will set minimum health and safety requirements, although districts may choose to enact more aggressive ones in consultation with their local public health officials. These minimum requirements will apply to all schools, traditional, charter, public, private, and parochial. We recognize that protocols will cost money, and that's why preserving every dollar possible for K-12 is my #1 priority. Nothing's more important than the safety of our kids and school staff, and we know that nothing can replace the value of face-to-face instruction. While budget decisions are evolving, there's no doubt that we will need more support and flexibility from the federal government. This is a crisis unlike anything we've ever seen in our lifetime, and it has had significant budget implications, not just for Michigan, but for states all across the country. We need the federal government to provide more funding for states and flexibility so we can continue to provide crucial services. And we need their help to ensure resources for our kids. Over the past week, Michigan has emerged in a national leader in COVID-19 mitigation, thanks to the people who did their part, and especially the brave men and women on the front lines, and thanks to our epidemiologists and experts in public health. But let's be clear, this crisis is not over. COVID-19 is still very present in Michigan, and if we drop our guard, we'll end up on the map the way that those other states are. So we've got to stay disciplined. Let's maintain this lead for the sake of our health and for our economy as well. We must do our part by wearing masks and practicing social distancing. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to move the state into phase 5 of the My Safe Start plan before July 4th. It's going to take everyone's continued efforts to get it done, though. So I'm proud of the work that we've done. We've been able to do this because of quick, aggressive action that we took. The data shows our actions working, and yet we still see attempts to take away my authority to take these actions, which made it all possible in the first place. I want to be very clear. Any attempt to strip away the powers of the governor during this crisis is irresponsible, dangerous, and foolish. We're here today in phase 4 of the My Safe Start plan, heading towards phase 5 and leading the country because of the action we took. Millions of Michiganders who've done their part as well. Let's keep up the good work. Let's stay safe, let's be smart, and remember to wear your mask. I want to end by saying that this Friday is Juneteenth. On Wednesday, I issued a proclamation declaring June 19th as Juneteenth Celebration Day in Michigan. Juneteenth is a crucial day in our nation's history, to remember how far we have come and to recognize how far we still have to go. During a time when communities of color are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, and when the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery have shone a light on the systemic racism Black Americans face every day, we must work together to build a more equitable and just Michigan and a more equitable and just United States. We've made progress since the start of this administration on criminal justice reform and addressing racial disparities in education, healthcare, and more. But there is more work to do. I promise to continue working toward a more equitable Michigan. And I know leaders in this administration, across this administration, share that goal. Leaders including Dr. Janae Caldoun, who is here today to share an update on COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. So as of yesterday, Michigan has 60,189 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 5,790 deaths. Overall indicators for the state are trending in the right direction, with much of the state remaining in the medium or low risk range. Every MERC region, except for the Kalamazoo region, has under 20 new cases per million residents per day. The Kalamazoo region is at about 22 cases per million people per day and has seen a recent increase in the past couple of weeks. But we know that the local health department serving Branch County is working very hard to expand testing and contain an outbreak that's particularly associated with a pepper farm. Testing across the state has also held steady at a little over 14,000 tests per day, and the percent of tests that are positive continues to drop overall and is now at about 2.2%. That is about half of the rate of positivity that it was last week, which is a good sign. We also know that people are continuing to recover from COVID-19. As of last Friday, 44,964 people were alive 30 days after their diagnosis, which is also a good sign. We continue to emphasize that the best way we can know where disease is in the state and to stop the spread is to make sure that anyone who needs a test can get one. We're working hard to expand testing, particularly as we re-engage more sectors of the economy. So if you feel sick, you should get tested. If someone close to you is sick or has symptoms, you should get tested. And if you work outside of the home, you should absolutely get tested. There's dozens of test sites across the state, and they're offering testing at no cost to the patient, including people without symptoms. So we're asking that employers, community groups, and local leaders work collaboratively with these sites to maximize the use of testing capacity in the state. And remember that a doctor's order is no longer needed to get a test done. So you can find a list of our testing sites across the state at www.michigan.gov/coronavirus test. You can also call our COVID-19 hotline, and that number is 888-535-6136, and they can help you find a place to get a test. We also know that we have to do everything we can to protect our most vulnerable, and particularly those living in nursing facilities. We've already set up regional hubs, so those are facilities that were verified to have appropriate staff, space, and PPE, like masks and gowns, to be able to take care of nursing home residents safely. We've set up comprehensive infection prevention, resource, and assessment teams that have worked with nearly 300 long-term care facilities to make sure they are following best practices when it comes to preventing spread of COVID-19 in their facilities. And we've been working very closely with the National Guard to make sure testing kits are available to nursing homes across the state. But earlier this week, we took it even further. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services announced a new order on Monday mandating that nursing facilities test both their residents and their staff. All facilities now have to, on an ongoing basis, test all residents when they are being admitted to the facility and test all staff or residents who have symptoms or have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. And any facility in a region of the state with a higher number of cases has to test both residents and staff every week until that facility has gone at least 2 weeks without any new cases. This will make sure we are quickly identifying anyone who could have COVID-19 and that we are preventing its spread. We also know that it's important that we accurately report nursing home case and death data. So over the past 2 weeks, we've had a team of dozens of people with staff from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and Michigan State University and others who have reached out to every nursing home in the state to make sure the data that they were sharing with us was accurate. We've now posted this validated data of COVID-19 cases, deaths, and by facility on our website. As of June 16th, there were 7,163 cases of COVID-19 and 1,947 deaths due to COVID-19 in nursing home facilities across the state. That is 12% of our state's cases and approximately 34% of the state's deaths. This is not something that we take lightly at all, and I myself have had a family member who contracted COVID-19 in a nursing facility in another state. So it is incredibly important to us that we continue to work hard to protect people living in these facilities. As the governor mentioned, Michigan's fight against COVID-19 is nowhere near over. Please do not think that just because we're seeing a decline in cases that the risk has gone away. All it takes is a couple of people with the disease who can spread it to several others, and we will see another rise in cases. We are still seeing outbreaks in some places in the state. And we know that other states where people have let their guard down, as the governor mentioned, they are seeing spikes in cases. Everyone has to keep being smart. Wear your mask when you're out in public. Don't wear it down around your neck. Don't wear it only over your mouth, but wear it properly over your mouth and your nose. Wear it every time you're going to be in a public place or not able to remain 6 feet apart from other people. Wash your hands diligently with soap and water often, or use a hand sanitizer, and clean, frequently touched surfaces like doorknobs and computer keyboards or light switches often. And by all means, please stay home if you are not feeling well and you are sick. It's been a long and hard past few months here in Michigan, but please, everyone, remain patient and vigilant as we continue to fight COVID-19. And now I'll pass it over to Tanya Allen.
Thank you, Governor Whitmer and Dr. Caldoun. So good morning to everyone. My name is Tanya Allen, and I stand before you wearing multiple hats. And so the first is that I'm a mother of 3 children, of which one is a rising 9th grader. I'm also the president of the Skillman Foundation, a Detroit-based philanthropy where we work to ensure that all children in our city are able to learn and to lead. And I also stand here as the chair of the Governor Whitmer's Return to School Advisory Council. After nearly 1,800 submissions, 25 talented and thoughtful citizens with cross-sectoral representation in the fields of education, public health, government, and nonprofit were selected to serve our state on the Return to School Council. These advisors really represent students, parents, teachers, administrators, school board members, organized labor, doctors, public health executives, mental health professionals, and policymakers. So we have a broad spectrum of experiences and knowledge that will benefit our state and the recommendations that we will present in the roadmap. And our membership is committed, talented, and we're also extraordinarily anxious. We want to do right by our state. We understand the implications of returning to school and that it will have an outsized impact on our health as a state, our educational system, as well as our economy. Therefore, we must be both thoughtful and sensible. So as the chair and the representative of the whole, I'm very mindful that the decisions of this body is privileged work. And with any great privilege, there is great responsibility, like protecting our children, protecting our educators, listening to our parents, bringing forward recommendations that are grounded in science, context, as well as aspiration, ensuring that we preserve the opportunity for all children in our state to experience a high-quality education experience during this pandemic. And that means that we have to think about how all of our recommendations affect different geographies and different subpopulations of children, like children who live in rural communities, children who live in cities, children with special needs, children who are new to learning English, children whose parents may not be equipped to teach them at home, and advocating for policies that protect our education system, both academically and financially, and pivots us forward versus losing a decade of growth and investment, which we witnessed in our state after the Great Recession. The people across the state have done their part to slow the spread of the virus and to flatten the curve, as Governor Whitmer and Dr. Khaldun have shared. And the state is moving forward with the governor's Michigan Safe Start plan. So it's only sensible that the Return to School Council work be grounded and aligned with the governor's plan. And we must remain diligent so that we prevent another surge of COVID cases. So in closing, I want to share that if we stay diligent, this is what we can expect. We can expect that school will open in the fall, that there is going to be a group representing the Return to School Council taking these issues seriously, just as seriously as you would and any other parent would, that there will be guidelines in place that will give schools the direction on how to ensure the safety of their students and their educators, and that you should have confidence in those guidelines, and that parents can be assured that your children will be cared for physically, academically, and mentally, and that we will all be navigating a new normal together. So we must be nimble and agile, because some things may need to change, especially as we're still amid the coronavirus pandemic. Lastly, and most importantly, all of Michigan can have a peace of mind that our kids, our children, our future will be safe and prepared to lead the state forward. Thank you. Sorry, Kevin.
Thank you, Chairwoman Allen, and thank you also to Governor Whitmer for the opportunity to serve our students, families, and educators throughout the state of Michigan as a member of the Return to School Advisory Council. My name is Kevin Polston, Superintendent of Godfrey Lee Public Schools. Our council understands the significance of our work and the high interest for a safe return to school. As a representative of Michigan school leaders, our primary responsibility is the safety and well-being of those we serve. This includes our students and staff, as well as our parents and community members that support teaching and learning in our schools. Our council is committed to creating safe guidelines and recommendations for return to school, but also sensible ones. Shifting in-person instruction to stage 4 with strict regulations is a common sense and best practice approach to reopening schools. Reopening schools is vital to fully restoring the economy, but it's imperative to act in a manner that is rooted in safety to avoid the potentially devastating impact a false start could have on both our education and economic systems. Equity is a core value of the Advisory Council. Traditionally, underserved populations of students, such as homeless, special education, English learners, students of color, and students in poverty, have been disproportionately impacted by the harms associated with COVID-19. Our council recognizes that our students who need the most resources to ensure an excellent and equitable education have been adversely impacted through COVID-19. In addition, we know it will take additional resources to safely reopen schools. A successful plan for return to school requires financial stability of our districts to serve each student, including our most vulnerable populations. I'm proud of our educators for answering the call this spring to drastically shift the way we provide teaching and learning to ensure we meet the needs of all learners through the continuity of learning plans. We know the plans from this spring aren't sustainable in the long term, and the uncertainty of what lies ahead has been difficult for parents and the school community. We hope the information shared today and the forthcoming roadmap will provide parents and the school community the reassurances and time in order to plan for fall. A wide spectrum of stakeholders are represented on the Governor's Advisory Council to ensure that each voice is heard. Our kids' future and the collective future of our state is at stake, and together we must be ready to meet the challenge that awaits. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Greg Talberg, and I am a high school teacher in Howell Public Schools. I'm honored and humbled to represent educators on the Return to Learning Advisory Council. I'm grateful that the governor intentionally includes the voice of classroom teachers in her decision-making. As a parent, I'm deeply appreciative of the opportunities to learn that school districts across Michigan created for students during the past 3 months. As an educator, I know that we can and we must do better next year. Without question, the upcoming school year will be challenging, and we must be prepared to adjust so kids can experience the powerful learning opportunities they're entitled to, and we can all stay safe and healthy. It is the Council's charge to help Governor Whitmer develop a plan that will enable students across Michigan to return to in-person learning. In order to make a return to learning possible, we'll need to not only to adapt and plan, but to work together in untested and unprecedented ways. Teachers and administrators will have to work more closely than ever before. School districts and the healthcare community will be required to build meaningful and powerful partnerships. School communities will have to work to support the academic, social, emotional, and health needs of both our students and our families as we all learn together how to navigate this pandemic. And finally, the effort to return to in-person learning must begin now, and it must begin with all of us. It's important to be reminded that it was COVID-19 that closed our schools and schools around the globe. It continues to present risk in our communities and spread to new places. We must make health and safety our top priority in order to get back into our buildings and into our classrooms. We must be vigilant, we must wash our hands, we must wear face coverings to promote the well-being of our friends and our neighbors. Our actions today will impact the quality of the learning experience of over 1.5 million students in the fall. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all for your work on the commission. I think it's incredibly important. You're doing a great job, and you got a lot to do in a short period of time, but we're awfully grateful. So with that, I'd be happy to open it up for some questions of me or anyone who spoke today, including Dr. Khaldun, of course. So, yes, Jonathan.
Governor, you mentioned, as you put it, the need for more financial assistance. Two-part question here. Will this school reopening plan, whatever it looks like, be feasible without additional federal resources to help schools have the supplies needed? And B, the legislature today appears poised to finalize a supplemental spending bill that would spend a large chunk of the remaining CARES Act from the federal government. Are you on board with that plan?
Yes, so I'll answer your questions in reverse order. Yes, we have had, I think, fruitful negotiations, and I do believe that that's reflective of those negotiations. With regard to the bigger question of what is funding going to look like, you know, I have had a number of conversations with people at the federal level who assure me that we are going to get the flexibility and we'll get some additional resources. Precisely what that looks like, we won't know until the U.S. Senate takes action and until the President signs it into law. I can tell you this, I have had conversations with my fellow governors across the country in our NGA calls, so Republican and Democratic alike. I have had conversation on this issue with the Midwest governors that I convened. Specifically on our call last week was Governor DeWine of Ohio and Governor Holcomb of Indiana, as well as Governors Evers of Wisconsin and Walz of Minnesota. The other two weren't able to join us, but I can tell you every single one of us is confronting the same issues. And we are all hopeful and optimistic that we're going to get the support we need from the federal government. It is very difficult because we've put tax collections back to July 15th. We had hoped to get budgets done by July 1st. We know that that's not going to be the case. But we are going to continue forging ahead on designing what our kids are going to need as they return to school. We got to get this right. And I think one of the concerns that I have on top of making sure that they've got the wraparound supports is, as a mom, as a policymaker, I know that learning loss over the summer is real. And it is more dramatic for kids who are in high poverty situations. And so it's really important that we look at this summer not as just an extended summer break, but this is going to have serious needs of our kids. They're going to have additional needs for wraparound services. And just in order to meet the health guidelines that we know are going to be necessary, bringing class size down or creating protocols, open air as much as possible. Of course, it's Michigan, we'll get cold, but there are lots of pressure points that we are trying to navigate, and funding is but one of many. But I remain hopeful and somewhat confident that we're going to get support out of the federal government because this is not a situation unique to Michigan.
Governor, I think the state of emergency is set to expire Friday. Will you be extending that?
Yes.
And do you think will it go through July?
It will. Every state in the nation has some form of state of emergency that is ongoing. It's necessary to continue to have the other executive orders that we've had to execute to be valid. And so we will remain in some form of a state of emergency. Early on, I know people were conflating state of emergency with stay home, stay safe. They're not the same thing, but being in this state is what gives us the ability to continue to protect people. And all 50 states are in some form or another of state of emergency because of that precise issue, and we'll have to be as well.
Yes. Governor, you've talked a lot about avoiding a second wave. At which point which benchmark are you looking at where we can say, okay, we've avoided a second wave, we're finished, or we can loosen restrictions?
Well, you're not going to be surprised when I ask Dr. Khaldun to come to the microphone. I'll just say this. We know that states that have dropped their guard are going through a wave. Some would say it's their first wave because they didn't take it, some states didn't take it as seriously as we did on the front end. They didn't have the kind of early issue with COVID-19 that Michigan had in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut. But they're now going through what is a crisis, and they've got hospitals that are full, and they're worried about PPE and all the things that we were worried about a couple months ago. The likelihood of additional spikes is high. Anyone who has studied what happened with the 1918 flu pandemic or what's happened in other nations around the world knows that that's a very real possibility. And the more we start to congregate indoors as the temperature goes down, in combination with flu season, we know that this is something we've got to be very concerned about. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. J so she can tell you a little bit more about what we'll be watching in terms of numbers.
So yes, that's a great question. So I can say that until we have an effective antiviral or a vaccine that not just is available, but that it's being, but people are getting the vaccine broadly, we're going to have to live in kind of a different way across the state. So some of the metrics that we'll be looking at are some of the things that I talk about often. So number of cases per region, we'll be looking at whether those cases are associated with an outbreak or if it's more broad community spread. We'll be looking at obviously our deaths, but understanding that deaths tend to lag where the cases are, so they tend to be a little bit later. Of course, we'll be continuing to look at hospital capacity. We know that very early on, particularly in Southeast, a lot of our hospitals were struggling with maintaining staff and space to take care of not just patients with COVID-19, but patients who don't have COVID-19 as well. So those are some of the things that we'll be looking at. There's not going to be a special number that will say we definitely will move forward or move backwards. We'll look at it all in context and then be able to make the right decision as far as how we might continue to reopen the economy, or unfortunately and hopefully we don't have to do this, roll it back a little bit.
We'll take a few more questions, but can you speak up so the mic can pick up your questions? Yeah, thanks. Governor, the unemployment insurance agency is still having issues with people not getting paid. I know there were some scam issues, but Michigan is one of the worst in the United States, coming second only to Nevada. So what more can be done at this point?
Well, first, I'll challenge the characterization that we're one of the worst. That's not accurate. Michigan has actually met the needs of more people than just about any other state. We have a unique challenge here in that we've got more people that are in need. And that means while we have been able to help more people, we still have more people who haven't yet been met. And that's an issue. And I'm not going to get defensive about that. That's a problem that we are continuing to work on. I'll also acknowledge that we have, is a criminal component to people trying to defraud unemployment systems across the country. And we've started an investigation on that front. But because our unemployment rate has been so high, because we've been hit so hard by COVID-19, that is, a challenge that makes it harder for us to get to the last people. Now, we have quintupled our staff. We have done an incredible amount of work to meet people's needs. We have moved billions of dollars to help people. We have also are working with an unemployment insurance fraud task force that's being led up by the Attorney General to get accountability and try to recover as much resources as we can. So I would say that we have work to do, there's no question. And it's cold comfort to people who are still frustrated in getting through the process that we've helped a record number of people. And we will continue working until everyone who's eligible gets the resources for which they are eligible.
Governor, given what you said about attempts to take away your power, would you call publicly for Republicans to drop their suit against you?
I think that in the midst of a global pandemic, it's really important that we refrain from letting public health become a political football. It's dangerous. Lives are lost when that happens. The fact that even wearing a mask has become a political statement is really unfortunate, and I'm hopeful that we can show the world that that doesn't have to be the case, and we're asking that people mask up for their own safety, for the safety of their family, and for the safety of their community. With regard to the politicization, I think it's dangerous, and for a governor, no governor in the country likes using these extraordinary powers inherent in the executive office. No governor in the country wants to be navigating through a global pandemic. No governor in the country relishes the actions that we've had to take. I've talked with a lot of my colleagues, and I know that to be true. And yet they're absolutely necessary that we have these powers for situations like this. If we hadn't taken the actions that we had, thousands more would have died in this state. And so for people to come in and to make it a political issue is really foolish and dangerous, I think. Whether it is me in this position or whomever succeeds me ultimately, regardless of what party they're in, I hope they have the tools to do what they need to do, to listen to the experts and keep me and my family safe. And that's precisely what's driven every decision that I've made as governor. Yes, Eric.
Now, you have repeatedly said that wearing masks is not a recommendation, it's an order. As people are opening back up, there are people out and about. Fewer people are wearing masks in certain situations. You showed a photo of a bar that was not social distancing. How much enforcement is there? Can you push this? I mean, it just seems like a major complaint to me.
So I think that the vast majority of business owners are really want to get this right. They're worried too. They're worried for their employees, they're worried for their patrons. I went out and had a bite to eat in Detroit last week with the mayor. We both wore masks. I wanted to check in with my council to make sure I did it precisely right. You wear your mask until you're seated, and then you can take it off and enjoy your meal and then put it back on. The wait staff all had masks. The owners had masks on. Everyone was masked up. We can resume some of these normal functions in life if we're smart about it. Now, if we're not, if businesses don't enforce this, their employees are going to be scared to come to work. Their patrons might get sick and might be afraid to come in and, patronize their businesses. And so it's on all of us to get this right. I think it's really important that businesses are empowered to set the example, that everyone who has a platform sets that example, regardless of whether it's at the local level, the state level, or the federal level, regardless of what party, that people are recognized that this is something that we do to protect ourselves and our loved ones. I have a daughter who is asthmatic. I know that if I am asymptomatic and bring COVID-19 home, that she could be in, serious situation. That's why I want to wear the mask. I wear the mask because of all the people that I serve and represent. I want them to see me wearing it. And I'm hopeful that others will embrace that. I know that my Republican colleagues and governor's offices are, by large part, doing the same thing, and I think it's incumbent on all of us to. That one pictorial that we showed about what the odds are of transmission, if two people are wearing a mask, it goes down to 1.5% according to that data. If one person's wearing the mask, but the other one's the asymptomatic person that's carrying COVID-19, they have a 70% chance of getting COVID-19 even though they're wearing a mask, the healthy person on the receiving end. That's why this makes a difference. So if everyone wears masks, we can continue to show the world Michigan can get it right. We're disciplined, we're smart, and we're going to get back to business here. Mackenzie?
This may be a question for you and or Dr. Calhoun, but when we're starting to see more data coming out about nursing homes, but when can we expect to see the information about other long-term care facilities in the state?
Yep, I'm going to hand that over to Dr. J.
So we are actively working on that. Again, we basically built an army of people to call every nursing home individually to get the data and to get it right. And there's still even a few that we didn't get in contact with. So our next phase will be getting information about the other long-term care facilities. The challenge is some of those are not actually regulated by us, so it's more difficult to get the information and to get into those facilities. But again, being robust and getting more accurate data out is what we're going to continue to work to do.
Quick follow-up. Do you plan on calling all of those facilities like you did with the nursing homes?
At this point, again, I'm not even sure how many there are, to be honest, because we don't regulate them, but we will do whatever we have to do. If it's making phone calls, we'll make those phone calls.
All right, we'll take just a couple more.
Okay.
Yes. Quick question. If we do get a second wave, what would we do differently to avoid the virus getting a foothold in nursing homes or long-term care facilities?
Well, I think a lot of the actions that we've taken will improve our odds at keeping people safe in congregate care facilities with older residents. We know that they have a unique vulnerability to COVID-19. We've seen it play out across the country. Sadly, it's been the experience in every state that's had COVID-19. We're in a stronger position because we've built up PPE, we've built up our testing capacity, we understand better the inherent risks, and so I do think that all of those things will help inform decisions as we move forward. But even as of yesterday, we've refined and I think been able to promulgate rules that will do improve safety. Yeah.
Governor, I know you said you would go more into detail on minimum requirements for schools later on this month, but do you, for teachers and students who are, might be parents who are curious, what would some of those minimum requirements look like?
Tanya, you want to take this? She's very excited. No, well, I think it's hard to tell precisely what it's going to look like. They're doing an incredible amount of work. I mean, we've got 25 people from across the state. We had, over 1,000 apply to be a part of this. I know people really care. They want to get it right, and they're working very closely with our public health experts to do that. What could it look like? I mean, there are a lot of things we could imagine, but we also have to remember we've got over 800 school districts in the state of Michigan. Each has unique challenges, and each has unique resources, that, whether it's what the building looks like. And so I think what I can tell you is that our intent is to resume in-person instruction, to do so in a way that is safe, but also to make sure that as we get back to school, as we return to learn, that we have very clear guidance to what the minimum expectations are. Some schools will be able to do things even in an even more aggressive way. Others will need some help just to get to the minimum expectations, but bringing down class size we know is a possibility. I think one of the statistics that I shared with the national experts with whom I was on the phone this weekend, Ashish Jha and Zeke Emanuel, Scott Gottlieb, Josh Sharfstein. These are people that you see on the news every night on national news. One of the things that is very clear is that we have an older population that is a little more vulnerable in terms of our teaching, in the ranks of our teachers. And so this is an additional reason that it's really important that we get it right. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer in her press conference today now completed. We'll take a short break here, and we'll return with Dave, Scott, and I to talk through what we heard today from Governor Gretchen Whitmer. You are watching and listening to the Megacast on our family of stations. We will return very shortly.
Hello, I'm Dr. Faust, Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. Coronavirus disease 2019, or COVID-19, is a new disease caused by a new respiratory virus named SARS-CoV-2. COVID-19 was first identified in December 2019. There is currently no vaccine to prevent coronavirus disease 2019. The best way to prevent illness is to avoid being exposed to this virus. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, especially after going to the bathroom, before eating, and after blowing your nose, coughing, or sneezing. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces using a regular household cleaning spray or wipe. Avoid close contact with people who are sick, and avoid touching your eyes, your nose, your mouth. Cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue, then throw the tissue in the trash. Finally, stay home when you're sick. For more information about coronavirus disease 2019, go to oakgov.com/health or call 1-800-848-5533.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe.
And I'm Dave Scott. Thank you very much. Tyler broadcasting in our studios in West Bloomfield at Civic Center TV and Lakes FM. Tyler, I'm broadcasting from the least interesting broadcasting facility ever in the history of broadcasting right now. A gray room with a light on top of it, and my dark blue shirt. It looks like I'm incarcerated. Okay. I mean, to be honest with you. So thank you if you're watching on television. We'll work on improving that to some degree. And thank you very much for listening on the radio on our great radio stations, Lakes FM, The Biff, and Avondale Community Radio. Wow, interesting press conference from the governor over the past 45 minutes. Tyler, as we expected, the governor touting the success of the extensive number of gubernatorial orders that we've had here in Michigan over the past several months, and how well things have worked out. You know what? Good for her. Yes. She should stand up and take credit today. We put the map up on the country where she showed that Michigan and New York, who'd have thunk, Michigan and New York are in the best shape right now with regard to coronavirus. And there are a number of states that, I'm sure she would allege, open their doors somewhat carelessly, and they are seeing peaks right now. And then there was also concern from the governor about a couple of cases that popped up here in Michigan, one in Traverse City over Memorial Weekend, and another one in the area where the dams burst in the central part of the state, where somebody came in from out of state to help, and up in Traverse City where somebody came in from out of state to, I assume, visit, and brought COVID-19 with them. So, yeah, it's another thing to be a little bit concerned about. We had been worried about people from our area, Oakland County, traveling to northern Michigan. Right. Governor seems to be more concerned right now about people from outside of the state of Michigan coming to Michigan.
And I think that's a valid concern. I mean, in the situation we're in, there's not a vaccine, there's not an antiviral, which is something that Dr. Jonay Caldoun made a point to say during her portions of the press conference. Until that's the case, you're going to have these isolated incidents that pop up, a case here and a case there, and that's okay. That's bound to happen, and the best way to prevent a further outbreak from there is to take the safety measures that we've taken. But I think it does have to be a valid concern that people may be coming in from other regions to regions with less of a severe outbreak of COVID-19, or coming in from other states that have more severe numbers, and maybe they're not taking those precautions, and they bring those lack of precautions into the state of Michigan, and you can have more than an isolated incident in those scenarios.
Continue to see things discussed by the governor today that we've been talking about here in our program. Certainly education was a major focus today, a lot of concern and question about education reopening here in the state of Michigan. And the governor said expect that this fall. She's a parent of a high school senior. Excuse me. She said, by the way, that was not a COVID cough, Tyler, just letting you know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, but she's the parent of a senior in high school for this fall, and kids are going to be going back to school here in Michigan. They're working on how that's going to happen.
Yes, the Michigan Return to School Advisory Council has now been formed. It does have its chairperson, who is Tanya Allen, the president of the Skillman Foundation, as well as other superintendents and educators, and also civilians that are not in education in particular, that are on that advisory council, and they're actively now. Before a month ago or so, it was just the idea being put into place and the action being taken. Now that council has been formed and is considering action for how schools can properly and safely return in the fall.
And they're making recommendations.
Yes.
Meanwhile, we have a lot of school districts around the state of Michigan that have started working on their own plan, regardless and without recommendations of the state of Michigan, because they just need to get this thing going. So I think it's going to be a down-up thing and a up-down thing going forward. I thought there was an excellent question with regard to education asked by one of the reporters who said, well, what about money from the federal government? And yes. While the governor couldn't directly answer that, she said there's communication going on. And I correct me if I'm paraphrasing this wrong, Tyler, but she seemed to allude that she thought the money would be there.
It did sound like that to me. It sounded like the conversation, that from what she had said, that her conversations were leading toward that. I know that in the past month in particular, when she had brought this up in previous press conferences, her concern was that she is pressing the federal government and our representation in the federal government to provide those funds. Today, it sounded a little bit more optimistic than that, which leads me to believe the same as you do.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on Washington. That's out of her control, out of anyone's control here in the state of Michigan, unless you have a senator or representative title in front of your name. So those people will certainly be, we'll be keeping in close touch with them. And that sets things up with all of the commentary about education today and the presentations during the governor's press conference for our town hall here in West Bloomfield and across Oakland County later on today, with a number of administrators and folks from Oakland schools and state government all getting together at 4 o'clock this afternoon for an education town hall right here in our own backyard that we will have live.
Yes, we'll have that live for you, 4 o'clock, Civic Center TV, and here on Lakes FM as well. It'll be on civiccentertv.com on our live stream, and we'll have that for you in its entirety after the fact, a few hours later at the least, on demand on our website.
And for those of you that are on listening in Birmingham and in Troy and our other communities, feel free to go to civiccentertv.com later on today if you want to watch that live and join us. And I think Larry was trying to get, and Jeff, we're trying to get a Zoom link up on the website. If it's not there now.
They have located the link, and it will be up there shortly.
Okay, so we'll get that posted. We're going to put that on our coronavirus page, Tyler?
Yes. Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, so we'll get that up on the coronavirus page. You can go to the page later on today, give our guys a little time, they'll get it posted, and you'll be able to find your way into that Zoom meeting. And speaking of all of our issues being addressed today, the unemployment issue, while it wasn't part of the presentation, Tyler Keefe, you astute political observer, what happened is exactly what you anticipated, and a reporter asked the governor about the unemployment situation here in the state of Michigan. And I thought she gave a very well-prepared and not necessarily very empathetic response to that, in my own humble opinion. Governor said, well, we got a task force. Well, we've added people. Well, we're doing this. Well, we're doing that. If I was a reporter, I might have asked that question a little bit differently. And I would say, well, Governor, the state of Michigan has shifted the responsibility of the fraud that is being conducted in the state of Michigan, which we all agree is happening, to those unemployed in Michigan. Do you think that's the best way to handle this matter? That wasn't the question asked, and there certainly wasn't going to be a follow-up allowed by the governor on that. But the issue did come up. I think it's good because with the story in M Live today, that issue coming up in the press conference, I think we're going to start to see this thing percolate. It's too big of a story. Short of the COVID-19 crisis and virus itself, short of the virus itself, I can't think of anything that impacts more people around the state of Michigan that are having more difficulty than this issue. And during the conference, I got a call about another person that we're going to talk to tomorrow, who is going through the same problem right here in our listening area. They can't get their unemployment check. They can't get anyone to pick up their phone. They can't get any response, and they are starving. I mean, let's just be blunt.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. It's 400,000 people in our state that are in that situation, and it's not being properly handled.
I mean, you could set up a task force. And listen, I'm not here to pick on the governor.
No.
We today, she deserves a big pat on the back. She's taken a ton of heat for the way she's been managing this whole coronavirus crisis here in Michigan. But, the numbers play out that a lot of her decisions have been good. Certainly, a number of things could have been done better. The powerboat to sailboat thing, the golf courses without the carts. All of these little things, that incident. Remember the incident a couple of months ago when national news media went into a store and you couldn't buy a seat for your kids, a car seat for your young children? Those things, those didn't work out too well. But by and large, you step back, you take a look at the whole thing. Michigan, compared to other states around the country, is doing better. And it's only one person that deserves credit for that. A lot of people helping her, but that's the governor of the state of Michigan.
Yeah, the response has been at times a little bit much to some people, and it's been a little bit aggressive, but that aggression has done a lot of work and has saved a lot of lives and has made us at the point that we're at right now in terms of safety.
All right, so we hope you enjoyed the broadcast today. We are doing our very best every day to get you the information that you need from a grassroots level. We got a lot of very helpful information today. Tomorrow we'll do the same. We'll be back out in the streets of Oakland County talking to people on these stories that we discussed today and more, and just do all that we can to get to the nitty-gritty, the real story of what's going on during the coronavirus. And with that, Tyler, I'll send it back to you.
Well, thank you very much for that, Dave. That is going to do it for our show today. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Dave Scott, and in the studio with me taking notes today, Erica Jones also with us. We'll be back tomorrow for a great Thursday show, and we'll be joined by you once again and hope to see you there. Till then, you are listening to our family of stations. Megacast returns tomorrow.